and welcome to GameSec. Let's check out the Sega System 16 arcade board. They had more games that used this board than any other. The System 16 had a 68,000 CPU as well as a Z80 which handled the sound. It features over 98,000 colors with up to 4,096 of them on screen at once. It offers 2 background planes, up to 128 simultaneous sprites, and sprite scaling capabilities. This was the board that the Genesis was based on when it was designed. So let's take a look at each and every game that uses this board, and we're going to do that in chronological order. So let's do it. We start with Major League, released in January of 1986, even though the title screen says 1985.
Play ball!
As you can imagine, this is a baseball game. And it's a goofy one, controlled by a trackball and a dial. That means it's nearly uncontrollable at home. I tried using my Taito eGrip Mini 2 trackball and spinner thingy, but naturally it doesn't work. My expectations were perhaps a bit too high. The voices in this game are the same as the ones used in Tommy Lasorda Baseball on the Genesis.
Strike! Strike! Second baseman! Second baseman!
Overall, this could be decent if I could control it properly, but it is kind of primitive.
Ball! Strike!
Next is Fantasy Zone, released in March of 1986. What happens when you take Defender and add in a little bit of Gauntlet? I have no idea, but this is a horizontal shooter where you need to defeat all of the monster spawning bases in a looping level. The enemies are crazy and move erratically. This game is full of personality and color. Tons of life and creativity everywhere. You can buy weapons and things at shops, but unfortunately they don't last very long. You don't even need to die to lose them. This makes the game more enjoyable, that's why they put that in. Seriously though, this is a super fun, unique, and challenging game, and even the music is fantastic. This is Quartet, which came to the world in April of 1986. This is an action game where up to 4 players simultaneously need to work through a level, defeat the boss that carries the key, and take said key to the exit door. In single-player mode, you play as Lee here. You have a life meter represented by some numbers, which means you can take several hits, but you only get 1 life per credit. Along the way, you collect several different items which can aid you by increasing your powers and abilities, or they just may give you some points. If you take a hit, you drop your power-ups and the key if you have it. Fortunately, you can pick all this back up again. But that's where the competition comes in when you're playing multiplayer. Anyone else can grab your stuff too, and if they take the key to the door, they'll get more points than you do. You're all ranked after the stage is cleared. Aw, Lee, what are you doing, you naughty fella? There's also a version of this game called Quartet 2, which is just a 2-player version of this game instead of 4. The gameplay was expanded upon a bit when this came home for the Master System. The music here features some excellent composition, very catchy tunes. Here's Body Slam, released in May of 1986. This is a women's tag team wrestling game endorsed by Dump Matsumoto in Japan. Careful, she'll take a dump on you. I suck at wrestling games. That said, this one actually isn't bad. The control isn't too rough. It actually feels like I'm accomplishing something when I press the buttons, unlike many of the other wrestling games I've tried. Still though, good luck, because if the opponent doesn't get you, you'll run out of time and lose anyway. The music isn't bad, and it's probably the best feature of this one, at least for me. Believe it or not, this was ported to the Sega Master System as Pro Wrestling, where it lost its Dump Matsumoto connection and no longer has any women.
1. 1, 2.
This is Action Fighter from June of 1986. This is a high-speed shooter which may remind you of the Spy Hunter games. Go up as fast as you can, shoot enemies, collect power-ups, don't run into anything, and don't let enemies kill you. Yeah, good luck. This one's a quarter muncher for sure. You get set back a little bit when you die, but usually not very far. You often change into one of 5 vehicles to help keep things interesting. The ground-based vehicles all feel the same. Well, the Doom Buggy can jump over some of the obstacles, but not others. Have fun figuring out which is which. Sometimes you can choose left or right, which determines what kind of vehicle you get. This is much better graphically than the Master System port which came later, but certainly not as good on the gameplay front.
Customer is king.
Next is With Stella, Alex Kidd, The Lost Stars from December of 1986. This is an arcade companion to Alex Kidd and Miracle World on the Master System. Both games were being developed simultaneously. Sega was really going all in on Alex Kidd as their mascot. Can you imagine this being the face of your company? This one plays much differently though. It's a very basic platformer and you just need to make it to the end of the stage and grab the miracle ball which is encased and guarded by enemies. Oh, and if you touch an enemy, you die in one hit. This will happen a lot. You can collect an assortment of power-ups so that you can shoot, jump higher, and that sort of thing. These power-ups only last a limited amount of time. There are half a dozen different levels to play through, and to truly beat the game, you need to go through them all twice, Ghouls and Ghosts style. If there's 2 players, the second player is Alex's girlfriend, Stella. That is really interesting, which is why I pointed it out. Most people hate this game as it is quite insipid, but I've always had sort of a soft spot for it. I like the colorful graphics, the music, and the overall silliness. One thing to note is that the System 16 board was revised twice. The first one was called the pre-System 16 for whatever reason, but mostly you have the 16A and the 16B. The 16B added better audio, more memory, and also the sprite scaling capabilities that I mentioned before. And there are some games that actually run on both boards. Anyway, back to the games. Here's Dunk Shot from January of 1987. This is an overhead high school basketball game played on tabletop machines. Atari actually distributed the game in the US, believe it or not. I can only move my players left or right no matter how I assign the control since the actual arcade machine uses the Sega Sports Pad. Sorry, I mean it uses trackball controls. These sports games are clearly where Sega got the idea to release a trackball at home though. This could be kind of fun if I could control it, but I can't really say for sure.
Long shot.
This is Time Scanner from March of 1987. It came out in 1989 outside of Japan. This is a video pinball game. Just the thought of playing video pinball in an arcade where there's probably real pinball machines is kind of weird, but as a game, this one isn't horrible. You have an upper and a lower screen. Instead of scrolling smoothly to keep the ball in play, the game will freeze as it transitions to the other screen. The board itself is a tad generic, but there are time tunnels that you can go into which will give you different boards to play on. This right here makes the game a little more interesting. Overall, this one's worth a try or two, but it can't stand up to the best video pinball games. Here's SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, released in April 1987. This is an odd concept for a game. It's actually an update to the idea behind the original Missile Command arcade game. You're a satellite, and your main goal is to use the reticle to target and destroy as many of the missiles going across the screen as you can. There's other nonsense floating about that you can destroy as well. The missiles can't hurt you in these stages, but everything else can. If you miss a missile, it counts on the bottom of the screen as a miss. Miss too many, and it's game over. You control both the reticle and your ship at the same time, dual stick style, except that one of the sticks is a trackball. If you make it past this, you go to the defensive portion where now the missiles are attacking the planet or base that you need to defend. Same rules apply here, except that you don't really need to worry about moving your satellite around here. It's nuts. There's so much to pay attention to here that is nearly impossible. I don't like this game. However, I absolutely love the home port that it got to the Sega Master System called Global Defense. The control is so much better, and it's just an improved game all around. This is Bullet, released in June of 1987. This is an overhead dual-stick run-and-gun. One joystick moves your character and the other fires in the direction that you press, just like Robotron or Smash TV. Sadly, this game has none of the appeal of either of those. You just move to the end of the level while tons upon tons of enemies rush towards you. You can stand on these little pod things for a second to get a power-up, which doesn't seem to last very long. Even the rats want you dead. They go straight after you. They don't care about attacking any of the enemies. What's the deal? Do I smell good to them or something? At the end of the stage, you fight a boss who sits in a chair. This boss seems to be on most, if not every stage. I'll never know because the game weirdly didn't let me continue. This game just makes me want to play Smash TV. This is Super League, released in September of 1987. Yes, it's a baseball game, and it won't be the last one. It's played on a tabletop machine. The screen turns upside down when I pitch so the other player can bat. It uses trackball controls which naturally don't translate well to me playing it here. The voice is the same guy from Tommy Lasorda Baseball, but these are different recordings.
Third baseman. He makes the catch. Out.
All future System 16 baseball games would use the same voice set. There's a series of games called Super League on the Mega Drive in Japan, and the first one became Tommy Lasorda Baseball, but it's not a port of this game.
Foul. Ball. He makes the catch.
Here's Alien Syndrome, released in October of 1987. This is another overhead run-and-gun, but it's not dual-stick. You go to 6 different ships, run around, and blast legally distinct aliens. Sometimes there are gauntlet-style bases which will keep spawning monsters until you destroy it. As you do all of this, you need to rescue hostages. Not all of the hostages, but you do have a quota to meet. The hostages can't be killed, so you don't need to worry about that. After you get enough, you just need to find the exit. Once there, you fight a gross alien boss. Ew! Then, it's on to the next ship. I like all of the different weapons and options that you can collect. You keep them no matter how many times you die in a stage. After you defeat the boss, I guess you just throw them away or something, because on the next stage you start from scratch and you have to build up your firepower all over again. The graphics have a lot of variety, but the music, unfortunately, does not. This is a smoothly playing game that's lots of fun, at least once in a while.
The time bomb is set.
It's Shinobi, released in November of 1987. This is Sega's most successful System 16 release yet. It's a side-scrolling action platformer where you control a kick-ass ninja in the first game that he was ever in. It took Rolling Thunder's premise and made it way more enjoyable. You definitely jump up and down levels as you toss your ninja stars. You'll need to rescue the ninja kids that have been kidnapped, and you can't exit the stage until you get them all. This is easier done than said. Seriously, you can't miss them even if you tried. Well, except maybe in this level, it kind of goes all over the place, but it's still pretty easy to get them all. After a few levels of this, you fight an intimidating boss. Fortunately, you have ninja magic to help hurt them a bit. You get some extremely fun, but also extremely frustrating bonus stages where you need to shoot down all of the ninjas who just want to be near you. The graphics are a bit plain in spots, but still great. Each stage feels very unique. The music is also quite good with several distinctive themes, though it does repeat a few times during the game. This is one of my favorite arcade games of all time. I cannot recommend it enough. Here's Heavyweight Champ, released in December of 1987. This boxing game is actually one of a few called Heavyweight Champ from Sega. It takes after the arcade version of Punch-Out, except that the characters here aren't as interesting. What is interesting though are the controls. You grab onto these handles to thrust them forward and back to punch. You also rotate the monitor by physically moving left or right to dodge your opponent. Pretty crazy. The graphics are detailed and put the System 16 to good use with some scaling, but I would have liked to have seen more color. There are a lot of voices, and there's a droning noise that's maybe supposed to be the crowd, I don't know. I would have liked some Punch-Out caliber music instead of that noise. All in all, this was Sega's boxing game that was almost great.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get up! Get on your feet! Come on! Yeah! Knockdown! You're out!
I know, you're probably asking, hey, did Sega ever release a Sonic game for the System 16 board? Damn straight they did. Check it out. This one's called Sonic Boom, and it came out in December of 1987. No, it's not Sonic the Hedgehog, but instead a generic vertical shooter. This one seems to be inspired by Toaplan shooters, where you have air and ground targets to destroy, and the ground targets leave a pile of smoldering rubble when you wipe them out. Unlike a Toaplan game though, this one isn't particularly fun, or even interesting. For one, it's pretty hard, but you never get the urge to keep trying. There are a lot of enemy bullets which are often difficult to see. The coolest thing though is when the oil refinery blows up when you shoot it down in Stage 2. Too bad that this effect is trapped inside this mediocre game. Here's Ace Attacker from April of 1988. This one's a volleyball game that's played on tabletop machines. The name Ace Attacker sounds more like a kick-ass action game where you're really good at attacking things. But no. This one has a very unique control method to it with a joystick shaped like a hand, a spinner, a trackball, and a button. Kinda similar to Major League. Each of these tools controls a different set of players. As a result, it's a bit difficult to play with conventional controls. I'm surprised I was able to play it as well as I did, and I didn't do well at all. For instance, I can never hit the ball when my guy jumps high in the air. Hit it! Obey me! Otherwise, this looks to be an average game of volleyball with some quirky controls. This is Altered Beast from June of 1988. This is a single-plane beat-em-up where your goal is to win. You're a corpse risen from the grave by Zeus to rescue his daughter. She's being turned into a bird, who knows why. You start out as a lowly centurion, but by defeating the fierce white wolves, you're able to collect an orb. And if you've played video games for any length of time, you know that orbs are good for you. Grab it to power yourself up.
Power up.
The third orb you grab changes you into a fearsome beast. Oddly, only the wolf has actual animations. Other stages have you turn into different beasts and they just flash on and off. That's kind of lazy. You'll eventually encounter Neff, the boss of the stage. He grows and becomes a menacing creature, all in an attempt to cause your doom. Once you beat him, he strips away your orbs and now you're a pathetic human again. Well, why didn't he do this before the battle? Anyway, now on to the next stage. If you encounter Neff without first changing into a beast, well, he's not interested and just walks away. Maybe that's why he didn't take your orbs before the fight. He wants a challenge. However, if you encounter him 3 times as a human, he'll fight you anyway. As I said, in each and every stage, you change into a completely different beast, each with their own weird-ass controls. Except for the final stage, where you change into a palette-swapped version of the werewolf from the first stage. Lazy again. Maybe they didn't expect people to play for this long. Beat the game, and Neff finally dies for good. He's not alive, so he can't take your orbs away. Now you're stuck as a werewolf forever. Whoops. In the first stage, you'll see graves for both Alex and Stella. Get wrecked, Alex, kid. Altered Beast is the mascot now. This was certainly a fun game for its time, but it's short with only 5 levels. I still like it though. Passing Shot came out in August of 1988. This is a tennis game. You serve via third-person view, and once the ball is hit, the game switches to an overhead view. The timing can be difficult to get down at first, but once you do, the game is pretty easy to play. I mean, it's not Virtua Tennis or anything, but it works well enough. You have 4 types of hits that you can do when the ball is in action. Tennis games from this era are usually stinkers, but this one isn't bad.
Oh, 1540.
This is Excite League from September of 1988. This game is basically the same thing as Super League, but it uses a split screen instead of flipping the screen upside down whenever a team changes. I like this one better, but it's still tough to control. This game doesn't do much to excite, despite the promise of excitement in the game's title.
Center fielder, out. Safe.
This is Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair from Weststone. It came out in November of 1988. This is nothing like any of the other Wonder Boy games. Well, actually, you do have a life meter that's constantly depleting and needs food to refill, so that's kind of like the first game. Otherwise, this game scrolls automatically and you shoot to kill enemies. You pick up weapon power-ups which last maybe about 10 seconds. Once you get to the end of the stage, you go inside the cavern. Here, you're flying on a dragon, and now it's an extremely basic horizontal shooter. You shoot down enemies to grab power-ups. The boss fights are creative, and definitely the best thing about this one. The music is also great, but you wouldn't know it by listening to the game. If you check out the arrangements of the music on the port to the TurboGrafx CD, it lets you know how good these compositions actually are. This one's okay at best. I'm not sure why they called it Wonder Boy though. Here's Dynamite Ducks, released in December of 1988. You play as a blue duck. A girl has been kidnapped and you need to rescue her. Basically, the game is a beat-em-up. Your duck has a very short reach, which is a bit annoying, but he can get lots and lots of weapons to use projectile attacks. These all have limited ammo, of course. There are 2 bosses per level, and man do they take a lot of hits to bring down. The common enemies aren't very creative. You've got disembodied dog heads. Lots and lots of dog heads. Don't worry though, there are some disembodied moose heads in here for a bit of variety. You know what else is in here? Colonel Sanders! It's true, Japan loves the Colonel. The graphics make great use of the sprite scaling function on the System 16 board. The music is pretty catchy too, most of it anyway. It's just too bad that the game itself isn't all that fun to play. This is Sega's version of Tetris, released to the arcades in December of 1988. It's Tetris, but with crappy music. You can't rotate a piece if there's no room, like if it's up against the wall. Sometimes the background will change. I'm one of those strange people who never really got into Tetris. There's just nothing here that's interesting for me. But if you like Tetris, well, let me know how this version stacks up for you. Pun not intended. Well, maybe kinda. Now you're probably asking, where are all the Mahjong games at? I love that crap. Thankfully, there was only one. Here's Sukeban Jansi Ryuko from January of 1989. This is a Mahjong game that I can't even figure out how to start, likely due to a weird-ass control scheme in the arcade. That's okay though, it's Mahjong. I'm actually glad I can't play it. Here's Tough Turf from Sunsoft, released in January of 1989. You play as a dude in a tie who's had enough and wants to take out all the gangs. I mean, I guess that's what's going on. You can punch, kick, and jump. You can pick up one of many pipes that are all over the place and use as a weapon. The controls are a bit stiff. For example, to do a jump kick, you need to press jump and kick simultaneously rather than pressing jump and then kick. There are lots of digitized sounds in here, though I don't think that they know what a metal pipe hitting the ground sounds like. The game did come nearly a year before Final Fight, so some of its flaws are forgivable. These days, though, it feels a bit slow. Here's Wrestle War from February of 1989. This is a wrestling game which has some pretty nice graphics. I love the way the characters are drawn. The screen kinda does a weird skewing, rotating thing, and I'm not really sure why they feel the need to do this or even flip it around at all. I guess that's the gimmick of the game. Gameplay-wise, it feels like my buttons don't do anything at all, so pretty much like most other wrestling games. Body Slam from 3 years earlier had much better gameplay. Why can't other wrestling games play like that one did?
One.
This is Beirut from Sunsoft, released in April of 1989. This is a side-scrolling run-and-gun that's slightly reminiscent of Sunsoft's later game called Journey to Silius. That game would go on to have much more personality than this one does. You have 4 different weapons you can select from at any time, and there are power-up icons to collect. These will power up the weapon you currently have selected. Most of the weapons are fun to use, however it is extremely tough to avoid getting hit. Fortunately, you do have a very short life bar. Still, this is a quarter muncher for sure. The game's biggest fault is perhaps that the stages are mostly boring and lack anything that would give them a distinct identity, especially in the second half of this rather short title. The music doesn't even begin to approach Sunsoft standards of the time. It's worth playing through once, I suppose, but it certainly isn't a classic. Golden Axe came to arcades in May of 1989. This extremely successful game was a 1 or 2 player hack and slash beat 'em up. You could play as the cool dwarf, the super hot Amazon chick, or the generic dude who excels at his genericness. Each character has their own special magic to use as well. What's more is that there are different levels of magic depending on how many of the blue vials you steal from the helpless gnomes who didn't ask for any of this. Poor guys. The game is short with only 5 scenes lasting a few minutes each, but man is it fun. Lots of great looking sprites with cool animation, and even the backgrounds are extremely detailed and, well, just cool. After Double Dragon was so popular, this game showed that the beat 'em up genre was here to stay. Sure, it had some sound samples stolen from movies, but nobody cared back then. We were just too busy having fun. Flashpoint came out in July of 1989. This is a puzzle game, basically Tetris with a twist. You start with part of the playfield already filled in with blocks. But do you see the flashing blocks? Here they are. What you need to do is get rid of those by creating a line around them to make them disappear. And that's it, that's the twist. It's 2-player simultaneous, and you can play on top of backgrounds from Fantasy Zone. Before each round starts, you'll see a Sega character like Alex Kidd. This one is actually kind of fun, but only for a short time, at least for me. It's eSWAT, which came out in September of 1989. This one's a side-scrolling run-and-gun where you live the true life of a real cop during a regular day on the job. You shoot first and ask questions later. I'm just kidding. There are no questions to be asked here.
Hey, let's party!
You have limited ammo, but fortunately there's plenty lying around town in suitcases for the taking. If you run out of ammo, you resort to your trusty foot. After a few stages, you get mechanized. Well, not really. You're not actually a cyborg. Instead, it's just light body armor that easily gets blasted away as you take hits. But your firepower does increase and you get to use special weapons. The graphics are nice and big, but often bland without much detail. The music is extremely subdued. Still, it's a smoothly playing game that can be pretty fun, but it won't let you continue on the last level. Here's MVP, released in February of 1990. This is another baseball game, but it plays much better than Excite League, probably because it uses conventional controls. In fact, it controls similar to the likes of Tommy Lasorda baseball. But when pitching, you can hold down the button to charge the power of your pitch. The art style here is awkward, and I wonder why they drew everything this way. It wants to be silly, but everything else about the game plays it off fairly serious. The ball is extremely easy to hit, and you need to work if you actually want to strike yourself out. I noticed that no balls were thrown during my time with the game, and I couldn't throw them even if I tried. And I tried a lot. I also tried to hit the batter, but you can't seem to do that. So, all in all, the game is pretty easy.
Right fielder. It's over his head for a homer.
Final batch of games coming up, and by now the programmers have learned all the tricks of the hardware and should be able to pull off some crazy impressive stuff, right? Well, the key word there is should. This one's called Ariel, and it's from Westone, and it came out in October of 1990. This is an overhead tank shooter that has tons of promise. You're stationary while you shoot, but you can rotate in 8 directions. You can fire while moving if you just fire in single bursts. You also have a shield that you can activate if you have enough energy. This allows you to absorb a single hit, otherwise it's a one-hit death game. And it's pretty tough. Midway through the stage, you're put in a tunnel using a first-person view with lots of scaling objects. It's kind of weird as you'll have to turn around sometimes to attack enemies behind you. I think that whatever they're using to let the player know that there's something behind them could be improved. After that, you make your way through another overhead part and then fight the boss. Then stage 2 comes and the game really ramps up the difficulty. You get set back when you die. I don't think that I've ever seen past the first part of stage 2 here. And you know what? I'm okay with that, as I don't think that this one is really worth playing. I will say though that I do think this could have made a fantastic home game if the balance had been adjusted properly. This is Ryukyu from Success, released in October of 1990. This is a weird card game. I guess it's basically solitaire? I don't know, because I haven't played solitaire since I was a kid. And I don't remember playing it on a grid like this.
One pair.
But if you've played cards before, then you can figure it out pretty fast. The controls are good, and it even features an undo button in case you accidentally place a card down that you didn't want to. The music is nice, and honestly, the game is rather pleasant to play. Hell, I'm just glad it's not Mahjong.
Full house. One pair.
Here's Cotton, another game from Success, released in April of 1991. This is a horizontal shooter where you play as a cute witch who has a fairy friend who flies around and helps her. You collect different colored crystals for experience. You also have a few different special weapons that you can use, but you can't hold very many at once. Unfortunately, these don't have their own button, and you need to hold down the shoot button to use them. That means if you want a rapid fire shot, you need to mash the button. I love the spooky theme and the visuals of this game. I've never been all that fond of the actual gameplay though. At best, it's mid, but a lot of other people like it for whatever reason. As for me, the crystals detract slightly from the gameplay, and I feel that the common enemies are too bullet spongy for a shooter. But if that doesn't bother you, that's cool. This one puts up a challenge, as you'll need to restart the stage from scratch if you continue more than once. I love the graphics. I also love the music, but this is another one where you can't really tell that the music is as good as it is until you listen to the TurboGrafx CD arrangements. Here's Riot City from Westone, which came out May 1991. This is a beat-em-up which is fairly typical for its time. Unfortunately, it doesn't really stand out very much. You can punch and you can jump. You also have the standard special attack which drains your life bar if it connects. This one doesn't try to do anything special, and the visuals are a letdown compared to Final Fight, which was nearly 2 years old at this point. That said, it's not horrible. In fact, I think this one would be a lot more enjoyable if the sound effects were better. When you land a hit on an enemy, it just sounds sad and unsatisfying. It should instead use a beefy punch sound, kind of like this. This would go on to get a port to the Turbo Duo called Riot Zone, where they changed a few things up a little. This is The Destroyer from Jail from Philco, released only in Korea in June of 1991, give or take a few months. This is an unlicensed game, the only one I could get to work. There are a couple of others out there.
I'm the boss, and I'm K. Remember.
It's kind of a hybrid between a walk-and gun and a beat-em-up, similar to how the old game Narc played if you remember that one. Except here, up and down aren't exactly up and down. Instead, you move back and forth at the inverted angle that the graphics are drawn in. You shoot, jump, and can fire a limited amount of rockets. The gameplay is extremely sloppy. The hitboxes are questionable, and the entire game just lacks polish. But what else would you expect from an unlicensed game? So, what's up with this poster hanging here? Or how about this AC/DC ad on this truck? Perhaps you'd like to listen to some Quiet Diet and their hit song Metal Help. In fact, the album cover is advertised on the billboard above the first stage boss. Hold up, the boss is Quiet Diet. Why are there pirates with guns? And penguins? What the hell? And this continue screen is scary as hell. I'm getting electrocuted, people are cheering it on, and some dude is on the phone to give me a pardon or something just in case I insert another quarter. Oh, please insert the quarter, hurry up! Ah! This game is absolute slop that isn't any fun to actually play, but is still entertaining to see the bizarre sights that it beholds. This is Toryumon from Jamp, released in April of 1995. This is a rather late release for a game that uses the System 16 board. It's a competitive puzzle game where you need to create circles from the falling blocks. It's pretty easy to figure out and play, but your eyes can play tricks on you when you're going for a corner piece. I'm surprised that I haven't seen versions of this game on home consoles, but then again I haven't been looking very hard. All in all, it's rather pleasant to play. I had fun, and it can definitely be challenging. You should go down to your local 7-Eleven or hell, maybe even Circle K and give this machine a try today. This would be the final game released on the System 16 hardware, at least for a long time. Lastly, we have Fantasy Zone 2. This was brought to the System 16 board all the way in 2008. This was made by M2 as they were readying the Fantasy Zone Complete collection for the PlayStation 2. But they did put it in the arcade running on actual hardware, so it definitely counts. They did add a little bit of memory and stuff, so it could be considered the third official revision of the System 16 board. It plays similar to the first game, but now you can warp to the dark side if you want. There's no real reason to do so unless you want more of a challenge. As if the bright side levels don't offer enough of a challenge as it is. The game is quite good, but it can't hold a candle to the first game with the exception of the graphics, which are much better. I always get frustrated at the second boss of the game. It doesn't need to be this hard, geez. But it's still cool to see the old System 16 get one last ride. And there you go, every single video game that uses the Sega System 16 board, except for a couple of unlicensed titles that I couldn't get to run. Like Atomic Point is basically a clone of Flashpoint, or Snapper, which is basically a clone of that old game Snake. So what do you think of the Sega System 16 board? Also, do you like the Sega Genesis? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
I hacked in so that I can help you rescue the princess and you can get some poontang. I can somehow see everything you do instantaneously, which is extremely convenient. Hit these blocks with your head to reveal the secret items. You got a coin. Girls like a man with money, so get as many coins as possible. A mushroom, get it. Oh boy, you're flying high now, but don't trip too hard. There's something around here. You should investigate. 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 Oh wow, you found a hidden room. Grab all of these coins, which will increase your chances of scoring later. You've got the flower. Now you can shoot fireballs. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I told you not to trick too hard. Now look at you. Finally, we're in Bowser's castle. Be careful, Mario. It's Bowser. Throw your drug-fueled fireballs at him. Oh no! It was only a Goomba and not actually Bowser. No poontang to be had here, Mario. Now you're underwater. Don't worry, I've hacked your lungs so that you don't need to worry about getting air. I've also hacked your fireballs so that they work even underwater. Be sure to kill everything you can. Okay, Mario, you're really tripping balls now. The entire landscape is made out of mushrooms. Just try to hold it all together while I hack in a fix for all this. Okay, Mario, my data tells me that this is Bowser's real castle. Be careful in here. There's something around here. You should investigate. There's something around here. You should investigate. There's something around here. There's something around here. You should investigate. It's Bowser, for real this time. Watch out, Mario. You can do it, Mario. Keep going. You can do it, Mario. Keep going. You did it. Now grab that battle axe. Aw, hell yeah. Enjoy the poontang, Mario. You've earned it. I'll go ahead and sign off and give you some privacy.